is a spark in people who know that there is a whole other world of information that we are not getting. That there is a tiny, you can't even call it a universe, that is getting out in the mainstream media. The most limited space for the minority elite, and I'm not talking about people of color. We're talking about the corporate executives, the politicians who go back to being corporate executives when they leave office. When was the last time you saw a senator of the United States going to be in a nonprofit afterwards? It is very rare. Now, why is it? These guys say they're taking these jobs to serve the public interest. So you'd think they'd come from and go to jobs that serve the public interest. But that isn't the case. It is there for the connections and leverage to become corporate lobbyists. I mean, more often than not, the overwhelming majority of times, you parlay that access you have for those years into millions of dollars. There is the highest concentration of people in, senators and congressmen that are millionaires. I mean, certainly way out of proportion to the United States. That's simply what it is used for today. Well, Pacifica is about something so entirely different. Pacifica is about breaking down the sound barrier to allow in the voices of the majority. They're the fringe. We're talking about the majority of voices all over the world. People say, Pacifica is so unusual. Well, we shouldn't be unique. I mean, that's such a terrible comment on the political landscape in this country. We should be, I mean, we have the least financial resources, of course. All we got is the phones, right? Open up the phones, or people coming in, like David is going to be there later tonight, right, with Bob Fass. You're going to be going in. And think of the national treasure that David is. Think of the national treasure that Bob is, Bob Fass, who in the last weeks of this political purge that has taken place at our station, Bob Fass, thrown off the air. Why? He dared on his late night show to report that there was a legal settlement at Pacifica that would end the years of lawsuits that had been brought against the foundation. He reported, he was told in advance, you do not mention this. Now, the New York Times had actually even reported on it, the Wall Street Journal, the Washington Post, but no, in WBAI, it was not to be mentioned, and Bob dared. And then there was Mike Fader in the last few weeks, who was purged. I mean, on Saturday, by the end, and I want to say hi to Chet, the photographer, who has been with us right through this period where it's really been wonderful that he has documented this period at the end and the return. And that is so wonderful. I mean, we're still pretty much blocked out in the mainstream media, but he has been chronicling this. In fact, I was just thinking, Bernard, if we're not going to offer premiums, maybe another gift we could offer in addition to the Tulia videos that are so important is that one photograph, that gorgeous photograph. Have you seen Chet's photograph? Inside the studio on Tuesday morning. It is beautiful. There you are at the controls. And the group of us would come in on Tuesday morning. Video, it's a beautiful picture. I think we have it on our website, democracynow.org.
It's on Indie Media.
It's on Indie Media also. Okay. Just to give that and to say thank you. Thank you for making it possible. And of course, getting inside is just getting the chance to turn the key to bust open the door for everyone. That's the point of getting inside. Not to just be there ourselves, but to open up the microphones, to let people speak and breathe again. Like I told that story Tuesday morning. I don't know how many of you got to hear Tuesday morning when Wake Up Call came back on the air. It's amazing because it's just word of mouth. How would you even know it was going to happen? But we're downstairs at 5:30 in the morning, and the security guard is there. The security guards at our office building, the guys downstairs, I think they're all part of 32BJ, the buildings union, like so many around the city, have been under tremendous pressure all year. In fact, a number of them were suspended because of WBAI. Because from the time of the coup, of the political purge of Christmas 2000, you see the ripple effect when you have this kind of lockdown. They're being told they have to check everyone, that they have to check their ID, and just as we're getting security cameras at WBAI, we think that now, it's not only that you put them in, you know, that they were put in, and there are 8 cameras that are going all the time. You think, well, you know, you just turn them up. Once they're in, that's the cost, right? No, at least $50,000 to put them in, so thanks very much for setting up the system that would watch us 24 hours a day, or financing it. It also costs something like $3,000 a month to keep it going. $3,000 a month as it goes into a computer which can go onto the internet. It's ADT, I like to call it anti-dissident technology. But this is happening all over the country and the world, and we're just a small microcosm of it. I mean, as Bernard was saying, this coup that took place here, we got to personally experience what happens in a larger way in countries around the world. We experienced fear, we experienced the crackdown, what it means when people are afraid of losing their jobs, who stands up, who backs down. One of the people who stayed, but who had sided with us throughout, she came in that morning and she was just shaking with joy on Tuesday morning. I went over to hug her and she said, now I can smile at you when you walk by. I can actually wave. Because about 8 months ago when I was still there, while you know, we could walk down the hall and pass each other, since the security cameras were all in, she was afraid that if she showed any kind of gesture of camaraderie to me, that they could pick her off. And, I mean, that's just small compared to what happens in other countries, but it got more, and I was still inside. Think about the people that were banned. But these security cameras that were put in, downstairs, they also had security cameras. And the manager of the building would come in at 9 o'clock. They described it, how he would put up his feet with a cup of coffee, and he would review the videotape of the hours before and see, when people asked to come in, if they would be asked to sign in, if they would actually show ID, if the security guards made them show ID, and they would be suspended without pay if they didn't see that process. These guys, they said that it put them in danger. There would be long-time inhabitants in the building who would come in, racing in, and suddenly they'd be saying, no, you got to show me your ID. And people would get furious. What are you talking about? I pay rent here. What are you talking about? I suddenly have to stop. I'm late. And they'd say no. And they said they felt endangered at different times and under tremendous pressure. And so you see the purge, you know, trickle out and the pressure that everyone is under. So there's Tuesday morning, 5:30, we're all there, and there's a security guard, and he's really happy, you know, to see us all. But he's also nervous because there's some change. They have set up this absolute lockdown situation. And he says, wait a second, not everyone is on the list here. Not everyone, we're gonna have to call up. So he calls up to the station. He's used to getting orders now. It's very straightforward. There's only a few people who are allowed in, so you ask the person's name. More often than not, they're told they can't come up, so it's very straightforward. So he calls up and he says, I didn't get a list today. Who am I allowed to let in? Well, actually, he ended up calling. It was Robert Knight who picked up the phone. Really lay that out there. And so Robert says to him, everyone. And he said, who? And he said, just let everyone in. And so he's at the other end of the street. He said, everyone? And so he said, all right, go on in. That's it. This was the danger. And these were the doors that you opened. You provided the key. And now WBAI and Pacifica can begin to rebuild. There is oxygen at WBAI. We have so much to do right now. We are in the most critical of times. It is no joke that that dialogue wasn't allowed to take place for so long. As Bernard was saying, I mean, our job is really to open up the airwaves, to bring in the people who know. It's not us who knows, but we know who to call to get different people on. and to find out, we don't even know necessarily people we have on, but you start asking, you start pushing, and you do the hard work of finding out on the different issues who are the different voices, and then they tell you about other people, and soon you've got an entire world that has been left out of the rest of the media. So it is really quite easy to choose the unusual voices. They're not so unusual in our community, certainly in the mainstream media, and that's our job. And through this year, it's been amazing to me that the way that people could have successfully, perhaps, done this is just do that hard work and say, we can do it better, or we can fulfill this responsibility. But we so clearly saw that it seemed to be what exactly we had feared, to cut off all the information.
Today, the bulk of the tax burden will now be on the working class. As Norman Greenspan increased working class's share of Social Security tax while cutting taxes for employers. In addition, increased automated functions of the average business functions will enable major corporations to eliminate hundreds of thousands of jobs and increase profits, which means the stock of successful corporations will go through the roof. Major labor markets will decrease as additional hundreds of thousands of jobs will be done by robots. The rule of labor unions will now be obsolete because all jobs were eliminated yesterday. Unemployment is severely on the rise will drive prices down to record low level. So not only will profits increase for investors, each dollar will be worth more and more and more. With robots taking care of business in the home front, they'll require, like all the homeless, to go over to Afghan and take care of bin Laden because the war goes on and we like war, right, kids? War, war, war. George Bush said he would resolve the unemployment problem by sending all employment people over to aid on that war on terrorism and the search for the evil Osama bin Laden. Evil Osama bin Laden. Evil, 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 evil. As Bush said, let them eat cake. Let them eat cake. Let them eat cake.
They stopped broadcasting for a few days, even though our transmitter was on top of the Empire State Building, not the World Trade Center where other people's transmitters were. We could have easily broadcast. I mean, from the firehouse we continued to broadcast, and we could have linked. But no, it was more important to them to maintain the coup and not come over to the firehouse and just broadcast, because they were evacuated from 120 Wall, but there were many places they could have gone. The key is the transmitter, not the physical place where you're broadcasting from. And we had that transmitter. But no. So they went off the air for a few days, and when they came back on, you had to wonder whether it was worth it. Why bother to come back on? I was thinking of Beyond the Pale, the Jewish show on Sunday. I was thinking of the Asia Pacific Report with Aniruddha Das and Whole Cooperative. The South Asian show, the only progressive weekly South Asian show in New York, regular weekly show. These were the most critical. I mean, you have to have a different voice on Israel is, to say the least, extremely important right now. And to have the voices of those who are the #1 target in this so-called war on terrorism, the people of South Asia, and especially the population here in the United States, right, more than 1,000 people rounded up. Today I went to the memorial service for Dick Schaap, the sportscaster. His brother is Bill Schaap, who's a longtime activist and supporter of WBAI. Thousands of people were there. Billy Crystal was the MC. It was at St. John the Divine. And he was, Muhammad Ali was supposed to be there, but he said Muhammad Ali, who was 60 years old today, I believe, who wasn't able to make it. He has stopped flying because his name is Muhammad. He can't fly across the country. But, so you have the South Asian community, and they're ready with their big shows. Beyond the Pale is ready with their big show, you know, doing the responsible thing. If they manage to survive this political purge, they were going to do what they can to get the information out and to keep a slight door open while the rest of us are banned and fired to get some, do what they can. And they prepare their specials, and they're told, no. I mean, yes, they're back on the air. They will be preempted unless they unless their programs, there's only two things you can do: healing music or poetry. Well, music and poetry are essential in society to humanize all of us. But at this point, when the Bush administration was beating the drums for war, and you knew from the second this happened that that's exactly what was going to happen. And as activists, unfortunately, were forced to say, well, can we go out into the streets? Is that disrespectful to the people who died at the World Trade Center? What was disrespectful was that the Bush administration was revving up to kill more, just like those who'd been killed at the World Trade Center. Pure terror, right? Innocent civilians being killed, exactly what the Bush administration was preparing to do in Afghanistan, to avenge their deaths by killing more innocent civilians. And so the people of BAI, who were under tremendous pressure, could be banned at any point, they were forced off the air during that period. The very ones who were going to raise these issues. But you have made it possible for everyone to return to the original mission of Pacifica. I think it's appropriate that last week was the birthday of WBAI, January 10th, 1960. We went on the air. We might not have been there, but that greater family. That goes back to 1946, when the foundation of Pacifica was established by Lou Hill, who was put in detention camp during World War II. One of those 40,000 men who refused to fight in a war that millions went to fight it, but couldn't bring himself to. This week we did something on Democracy Now!, the PBS documentary, The Good Fight, and those who refused to, The Good War, and those who refused to fight it. A really good documentary by a man named Rick Tejada Flores, and I encourage people to watch it. A real testament to the strength of dissent. People who said, I will die for my country, but I will not kill for it. Who were put in detention camps and said, we will put our bodies on the line, but we do not feel that we can kill other people just like us. They ended up being part of experiments, medical experiments, where they were injected with live viruses like hepatitis. And one of the people who injected them was a young, later to be Surgeon General of the United States, C. Everett Koop, who is very ashamed of this now and put just a line in his autobiography about this precisely because he felt so bad, he says now, about this experiment he engaged in. A number of the men died as a result of being injected. Others were put through these hunger experiments, starvation experiments, where they lost, half their body weight, and a number died in this way as they were doing experiments on these prisoners. I mean, prisoners are experimented on in this country right through to today, and it's something that we have often talked about. But to hear, especially these voices now, and when this war, the media tells us, is extremely popular, to hear from men who were involved in another war, which was extremely popular, and why they chose not to fight it, but to stand up in other ways, work in the mental institutions of this country and expose the conditions there, saying we'll do anything. A lot of them went to work in the ambulances and the medical corps in World War II, but said we don't want to take other people's lives. Lou Hill was one of them, the founder of our network. And so we return to the original mission, and we say, what is happening in this country today? Bush and Rumsfeld say, as I think the Pacifica report that was on WBAI and has been put out by Pacifica, their version of history said today, as the war tapers off. Well, not exactly. Bush and Rumsfeld have said that this, in 2002, will be the war year. They're just looking for other targets. They are looking at Somalia. They're looking at Iraq. And they're looking at a non-Muslim country to be, an equal opportunity employer, something Colombia. And Colombians are very aware that the U.S. is funding the human rights abusing military there to the tune of, well over $1 billion. And they are very afraid of the fact that it's going to be couched under this war on terrorism. These are the issues that we have to look at as they don't take...
They're so strong, they're never going to go away. Just like all of us are so strong, we're not going to go away. And we'll get pain in the neck for the establishment forever because we love our own children and we love the place we live in. So I'd like to invite the next third gentleman. sure, I hope I pronounced it correctly, Choksan, and we're going to play together for the first time a wonderful traditional song. The name of this one, Ostinsola Wachipi, Floyd Red Crow Westerman's The Ladies' Choice Round Dance. Thank you all very much. Keep supporting the station. Thank all of you for your hard work and your wonderful efforts, and we'll continue forever for the next generation so the kids can have something beautiful and meaningful to hear. Thank you.